What happens when the galaxy's most feared mercenary companies encounter something they've never faced before? Across 1,000 worlds, alien warriors have built their reputations on conquest and bloodshed. The Krillian death squads can level cities in hours. The Vorthan battle clans have never retreated from any battlefield. The cybernetic Nexus hunters are programmed to feel no fear, no mercy, no doubt. But, when a routine contract arrives, eliminate a small human military outpost on a backwater planet, these legendary killers will discover that Earth's children carry something in their DNA that no alien species has ever possessed. Something that turns ordinary soldiers into legends, that transforms desperate last stands into impossible victories. The aliens came expecting easy prey. Instead, they found humanity's greatest strength, the refusal to surrender when surrender makes sense. They found warriors who fight not just for victory, but for each other. They found the true meaning of human. This is the story of the day the galaxy learned why humans don't just fight wars, they win them. The smoke-filled cantina on Zirion Prime buzzed with the usual mix of intergalactic scum and mercenary company representatives. Neon lights cast shifting colors across scarred faces and cybernetic implants, while the air hung thick with the scent of exotic alcohols and burning stim sticks. In the darkest corner of the establishment, 3 figures sat around a holographic projection table, their conversation barely audible above the ambient noise. Commander Zeth Kraxis of the Krillian Death Squads leaned back in his chair, his forearms crossed in a gesture of supreme confidence. His chitinous exoskeleton bore the scars of 100 battles, each mark a testament to his survival in conflicts that had claimed entire worlds. The Krillians had built their reputation on the simple premise that no target was too heavily defended, no enemy too numerous. They specialized in overwhelming force and had never failed to complete a contract in their 3-century history. Across from him sat Warchief Theron Voss of the Vorthan battle clans, his massive frame barely fitting in the reinforced chair. The Vorthans were giants among the galaxy's warrior races, standing nearly 3 meters tall with dense bone plates covering their shoulders and arms. Their culture revolved around honor in battle, and they viewed warfare as the highest form of art. To be defeated in combat was to bring shame not just upon oneself, but upon one's entire lineage. Theron's clan had never retreated from a battlefield, and their battle hymns were sung in fear across 40 systems. The third member of their group was perhaps the most unsettling. Unit 7 Alpha of the Nexus Hunters appeared almost human at first glance, until one noticed the subtle wrongness in its movements, the slight shimmer of artificial skin over cybernetic components. The Nexus Hunters were the galaxy's premier assassination unit, part biological, part machine, wholly lethal. They felt no fear, no remorse, no hesitation. Their neural programming eliminated such weaknesses, replacing them with pure, calculated efficiency. They had eliminated presidents, overthrown governments, and erased entire bloodlines from existence. Between them, a holographic display showed a simple planetary system with a single inhabited world marked in blue. The planet appeared unremarkable, a small terrestrial world with standard atmospheric composition and moderate population density. The target designation read Terra in Standard Galactic, with a subcategory listing it as Human Colonial Territory. The contract is straightforward. Zeth clicked in his native language, his translation implant rendering his words comprehensible to his companions. 1 human military outpost. Estimated garrison strength of 200 personnel. Complete elimination required. Payment upon confirmation of objective completion. Theron grunted, his deep voice rumbling like distant thunder. 200 humans? This hardly seems worth our time. The Vorthan battle clans have faced armies 10 times that size. Why would the client require 3 mercenary companies for such a simple task? Unit 7 Alpha's synthetic voice carried no emotion as it responded. Analysis suggests client desires rapid completion with 0 casualties among contracted forces. Redundancy ensures mission success regardless of unforeseen complications. Human military capabilities rated as minimal threat by Galactic Defense Database. The conversation was interrupted by the arrival of a figure that commanded immediate attention. The client was a hegemony intelligence operative, his rank insignia indicating high-level clearance within the galaxy's ruling body. The hegemony maintained order across thousands of worlds through a combination of political manipulation, economic pressure, and, when necessary, strategic military action. However, they preferred to keep their hands clean, outsourcing the messy work to independent contractors like the three companies represented at this table. "Gentlemen," the operative said, his voice carrying the refined accent of the core worlds. "I trust you've reviewed the mission parameters. Time is of the essence. The human outpost has intercepted certain communications that could prove problematic if transmitted to Earth High Command. The facility must be neutralized within the next 72 standard hours." Zeth's mandibles clicked with amusement. 72 hours? Honorable client, we could complete this mission in 72 minutes. Human military technology is decades behind current galactic standards. Their weapons are primitive projectile-based systems, their armor insufficient to stop modern energy weapons, their tactics unchanged since their first ventures into space. The client nodded approvingly. Excellent. However, I must stress that this operation requires absolute discretion. The humans cannot be allowed to transmit any distress signals. The outpost must simply disappear. No survivors, no witnesses, no evidence of external intervention. Theron leaned forward, his interest piqued. What manner of communications did these humans intercept? Surely routine intelligence gathering poses little threat to the hegemony's interests. For the first time, the operative's composure seemed to crack slightly. The specifics are classified. What matters is that certain parties within the human government have been asking uncomfortable questions about hegemony expansion policies. This outpost represents a listening post designed to monitor our fleet movements in the outer territories. Its continued operation could compromise strategic initiatives currently in development. Unit 7 Alpha's optical sensors focused on the operative with mechanical precision. Query: are human forces aware of impending assault? Have defensive preparations been observed? Intelligence suggests normal operational status. Standard patrol schedules, routine communications, no indication of heightened alert levels. The humans remain unaware of any threat to their position. The operative activated a datapad and transmitted additional information to each of the mercenary commanders. Detailed facility schematics, personnel roster, equipment inventory, and defensive positions are included in this data package. Zeth reviewed the information with practiced efficiency. The human outpost was built into a mountainside on the planet's northern continent, taking advantage of natural defensive positions while maintaining clear sightlines across the surrounding valleys. The facility's architecture suggested a philosophy of defense in depth, with multiple fallback positions and overlapping fields of fire. However, the weapons systems were laughably primitive by galactic standards: electromagnetic railguns, chemical explosive devices, and basic energy shields that wouldn't stop a civilian plasma cutter. Their defensive strategy shows some merit, Theron admitted grudgingly. The position is well chosen, the fields of fire adequate for dealing with ground-based assault. However, they appear to have no defense against orbital bombardment or air assault. Their anti-aircraft systems are woefully inadequate. The humans compensate for technological deficiencies through tactical adaptation, Unit 7 Alpha observed. Historical analysis indicates capability for innovative problem-solving under pressure. However, innovation requires time. Rapid assault eliminates this advantage. The operative smiled coldly. Precisely why we've contracted your services. The Krillian Death Squads will provide overwhelming ground assault capabilities. The Vorthan battle clans will ensure no enemy escapes the initial perimeter. The Nexus Hunters will eliminate key personnel and prevent communications. 3 days from now, this outpost will be nothing but a crater, and the galaxy will be one step closer to lasting peace under hegemony rule. As the meeting concluded and contracts were signed, none of the mercenaries present understood they were about to encounter something unprecedented in galactic warfare. The human military outpost designated as Forward Observer Station 12 was indeed manned by only 200 personnel. However, these were not ordinary colonial militia or regular army units. Unknown to hegemony intelligence, the station was staffed by members of the Terran Special Operations Command, veterans of humanity's most brutal conflicts, soldiers who had volunteered for the most dangerous assignments in human space. The men and women of Station 12 had been handpicked not just for their combat skills, but for their psychological profiles. They were individuals who thrived under pressure, who became more dangerous as situations became more desperate, who viewed impossible odds not as reasons to surrender but as challenges to overcome. They were the products of a species that had clawed its way to the stars through countless wars, natural disasters, and existential threats. They carried in their DNA the accumulated survival instincts of millions of years of evolution, refined by centuries of technological warfare. As the three mercenary companies prepared for what they assumed would be a routine extermination mission, the humans of Station 12 continued their daily routines, unaware that their peaceful monitoring of hegemony fleet movements had signed their death warrants. They maintained their equipment, conducted their training exercises, and shared stories of home during their off-duty hours. They were fathers and mothers, brothers and sisters, sons and daughters who had volunteered to stand watch on the frontier of human space. But they were also predators whose species had survived every challenge the universe had thrown at them, and they were about to remind the galaxy why humans had earned their place among the stars not through superior technology or overwhelming numbers, but through sheer, bloody-minded refusal to quit. The three most feared mercenary companies in known space were about to learn what it meant to fight humanity's finest. They expected prey. They were about to find apex predators who had been waiting their entire lives for exactly this kind of fight. The early morning mist clung to the valleys surrounding Forward Observer Station 12 like a gray shroud, providing perfect cover for the approaching assault forces. Commander Zeth Craxus watched the human facility through his tactical display, his four eyes analyzing every detail of the target zone. The installation appeared exactly as described in the intelligence briefing, a modest collection of reinforced buildings built into the mountainside, with observation towers providing overwatch of the surrounding terrain. All units maintain stealth protocols, Zeth transmitted to his death squad commanders. First wave advances in 30 seconds. Remember, no human must escape to transmit warnings. The Krillian death squads had been preparing for this assault since before dawn, their advanced cloaking technology rendering them nearly invisible to both visual and electronic detection. Each warrior carried enough firepower to level a city block, and their tactical doctrine emphasized rapid, overwhelming violence. They had never encountered resistance that lasted more than an hour against their full assault capabilities. Simultaneously, Warchief Theron Voss positioned his Vorthan battle clans on the opposite side of the valley, ready to intercept any humans who might attempt to flee the initial assault. The massive warriors had spent the night scaling the treacherous mountain paths, their heavy armor clanking softly in the pre-dawn darkness. Despite their size, the Vorthans moved with surprising stealth, generations of warrior training evident in every coordinated movement. High above the battlefield, Unit 7 Alpha and its Nexus Hunter assassination team prepared for precision insertion. Their mission was surgical identify and eliminate key human personnel before they could mount any organized resistance. The cybernetic killers had studied the personnel files obtained through hegemony intelligence, memorizing faces, behavioral patterns, and probable responses to attack. In their calculations, the mission would be completed within 27 minutes. Inside Station 12, Sergeant Major Elena Vasquez finished her morning coffee while reviewing the night shift reports. At 43 years old, she was a 20-year veteran of the Terran Special Operations Command, with deployment records spanning from the frontier wars to the recent conflicts with the Zilani pirates. Her weathered face bore the subtle scars of close-quarters combat, and her gray-streaked hair was pulled back in the practical bun favored by career military personnel. "Anything interesting on the overnight sweep?" she asked Corporal Jackson, the night shift communications officer. "Negative, Sergeant Major. Standard hegemony patrol routes, nothing out of the ordinary. Although..." Jackson paused, frowning at his display screen. "We've been getting some weird interference on the long-range sensors for the past hour. Probably just atmospheric disturbance, but it's been consistent." Vasquez set down her coffee cup, her instincts immediately alert. 20 years of combat experience had taught her to trust the subtle warnings that kept soldiers alive. "Show me." The sensor display revealed a pattern of electronic static that appeared random at first glance, but Vasquez's trained eye caught the subtle regularities hidden within the interference. She had seen similar patterns during the Tau Ceti campaign, when enemy forces had used advanced jamming technology to mask their approach. "Jackson, sound General Quarters. All personnel to combat stations, now." "Sergeant Major?" "Do it now, Corporal." The alert klaxon echoed through Station 12's corridors as 200 elite soldiers responded with practiced efficiency. Within 90 seconds, every defensive position was manned, weapons were charged, and communication systems were active. The transformation from peaceful monitoring station to fortress was seamless, the result of countless training exercises and the professional dedication of humanity's finest warriors. Captain Marcus Chen, the station commander, arrived in the command center still fastening his combat armor. "What's our situation, Sergeant Major?" "Possible incoming hostiles, sir." "Sensor interference consistent with advanced cloaking technology." "Pattern suggests multiple approach vectors." Chen nodded grimly. "Any luck raising command?" Communications specialist Torres looked up from her console, her expression troubled. "Negative, sir. Someone's jamming our long-range transmitters. We're cut off." The first indication of attack came not from sensors or visual confirmation, but from the ancient human instinct that had kept their species alive since the dawn of time. Private Morrison, stationed in Observation Tower 3, felt the hair on his neck stand up for no reason he could explain. The valley below looked empty, the morning mist undisturbed, yet every survival instinct screamed danger. "Tower 3 to command," he whispered into his comm unit. "I've got movement in the valley. Can't see anything specific, but something's wrong down there." Before command could respond, the attack began. The first Krillian warriors materialized from their cloaking fields like nightmares given form, their alien weapons charging with ominous hums. Energy beams lanced out toward the human positions, expecting to find unprepared defenders caught completely off guard. Instead, they found soldiers who had been ready for 20 years. The humans of Station 12 responded to the attack with a speed and precision that shocked their alien adversaries. Instead of panicking or freezing in the face of superior technology, they adapted instantly to the threat. Morrison in Tower 3 had thrown himself flat the moment he saw movement, avoiding the first volley of energy fire that would have vaporized him. Rolling to his backup position, he brought up his electromagnetic rail rifle and began laying down suppressing fire. "Contact! Contact! Multiple hostiles emerging from the tree line." His voice carried the controlled urgency of a professional under fire. Unknown technology, energy weapons, advancing on positions 2 through 7. Sergeant Major Vasquez watched the tactical display update with incoming threat markers and felt a familiar calm settle over her. This was what she had trained for, what every member of Station 12 had prepared for since the day they volunteered for frontier duty. The enemy had superior technology, superior numbers, and the advantage of surprise, but they had made one critical mistake. They had chosen to fight humans on ground the humans had prepared. "All units, execute Defense Plan Charlie. Heavy weapons teams, prioritize any unit displaying advanced technology. Snipers, target apparent commanders. Infantry, overlapping fields of fire, make them pay for every meter." The Krillian warriors found themselves facing something they had never encountered before. Instead of routing or surrendering in the face of obviously superior firepower, the humans dug in and began to fight back with a viciousness that caught the aliens completely off guard. The primitive projectile weapons that should have been ineffective against Krillian armor proved surprisingly lethal when fired with precision at vulnerable joint connections and sensor arrays. Commander Zeth watched in growing disbelief as his advance units encountered fierce resistance from defenders who should have been overwhelmed in the first 30 seconds of combat. His tactical display showed Krillian casualties mounting at an alarming rate, not from superior firepower but from impossibly accurate shooting and terrain advantages that the humans exploited with ruthless efficiency. "First wave, report status. Heavy resistance, Commander. These humans fight like they know exactly where we're going to be." Indeed, the humans of Station 12 seemed to anticipate alien tactics with uncanny accuracy. When Krillian assault teams attempted to flank left, they found human heavy weapons teams already positioned to enfilade their advance. When they tried to concentrate firepower on a single defensive position, the humans faded back to secondary positions that provided equally effective fields of fire. Warchief Theron observed the battle from his position and felt something he had not experienced in decades of warfare: respect for an enemy's tactical abilities. The humans were outnumbered, outgunned, and facing technology they had never encountered before, yet they fought with a coordination and adaptability that impressed even a veteran Vorthan warrior. Battle leader Gorak, take your clan around the North Ridge. These humans fight well, but they cannot defend every approach simultaneously. High above the battlefield, Unit 7 Alpha recalculated its mission parameters. The original plan had called for infiltration during the chaos of the ground assault, but the humans' rapid response had eliminated the confusion necessary for stealth insertion. Worse, the human defensive positions were better coordinated than anticipated, with overlapping coverage that made traditional assassination approaches extremely hazardous. Nexus Hunter teams, abort stealth insertion. Initiate high-altitude precision strike protocol. The cyborg assassins began their descent, expecting to eliminate key human personnel through superior technology and overwhelming force. They were programmed to analyze and adapt to enemy tactics, but their databases contained no reference points for the type of resistance they were about to encounter. As energy bolts and projectile rounds crisscrossed the valley in deadly patterns, the men and women of Forward Observer Station 12 demonstrated something that no alien species in the galaxy truly understood: humanity's greatest weapon was not their technology or their numbers, but their absolute refusal to accept defeat as an option. The mercenaries had expected prey. They had found predators who had been waiting their entire evolutionary history for exactly this moment. And the battle was just beginning. The battle for Forward Observer Station 12 entered its third hour, and Commander Zethkraxis found himself confronting an impossible reality. His Krillian death squads, veterans of 100 successful campaigns, were not just meeting resistance, they were losing ground. The humans, who should have been eliminated in the opening minutes of the assault, had not only survived the initial attack but had begun to push back with a ferocity that defied all tactical logic. Status report, all units. Zeth clicked into his communicator, his forearms working frantically over tactical displays that showed far too many red indicators marking fallen warriors. Second Squadron reporting 60% casualties, Commander, came the strained reply. These humans, they don't fight like anything in the database. They're using our own tactics against us somehow. The truth was more disturbing than any Krillian could have imagined. The humans of Station 12 were not simply defending their position, they were studying their attackers in real time, analyzing alien tactics and developing countermeasures with a speed that seemed almost supernatural. What the aliens didn't understand was that human military doctrine was built on adaptation and improvisation, qualities that had allowed their species to survive countless existential threats. Sergeant Major Vasquez crouched behind the reinforced barricades of the main defensive line, her tactical computer displaying enemy movement patterns that her trained eye had begun to decode. The Krillian warriors relied heavily on their superior technology and overwhelming firepower, but they followed predictable assault patterns that became obvious once you knew what to look for. "Chen, get me aligned to demolitions," she called out over the din of combat. "I've got an idea about these cloaked bastards." Captain Chen nodded, ducking as another energy bolt sizzled overhead. "Torres, patch Vasquez through to Demo Team Alpha." Staff Sergeant Rodriguez, the station's demolitions expert, came online immediately. "What do you need, Sergeant Major?" "Those cloaking fields the aliens are using, they're not perfect. I'm seeing heat distortions in the air, probably residual energy from their field generators." "Can you rig something to exploit that?" Rodriguez's voice carried the enthusiasm of a professional presented with an interesting challenge. "Give me 10 minutes and all the thermite charges from Storage Bay 3. If these alien bastards want to play hide and seek, I'll give them a game they won't forget." While Rodriguez worked on his improvised solution, other human defenders were developing their own countermeasures. The electromagnetic rail rifles that had seemed so primitive compared to alien energy weapons proved to have unexpected advantages. Unlike directed energy beams that could be deflected by advanced shielding, physical projectiles traveling at significant percentages of light speed punched through alien armor with devastating efficiency. Private Morrison, still in Observation Tower 3 despite having been under fire for hours, had become an expert at tracking cloaked Krillian warriors. His enhanced optics, designed for long-range reconnaissance, could detect the subtle visual distortions created by their stealth systems. More importantly, his human intuition allowed him to predict where the aliens would move next based on tactical patterns he recognized from countless training scenarios. "Tower 3 to all units," he transmitted, his voice steady despite the chaos around him. "Cloaked contacts moving up the eastern approach, heading for defensive position 7. Recommend heavy weapons concentration on coordinates 274 by 189. The human heavy weapons teams adjusted their aim according to Morrison's guidance, and, moments later, the valley erupted in explosions as concentrated fire found targets that shouldn't have been visible. Krillian warriors materialized as their cloaking fields failed, many already dead or dying from wounds inflicted by enemies who seemed to see through their most advanced technology. Warchief Theron Voss led his Vorthan battle clans in a flanking maneuver around the northern ridge, confident that his warriors' superior strength and armor would overwhelm any human defenders they encountered. The Vorthans were legendary for their prowess in close-quarters combat, and their battle tactics had been perfected over centuries of warfare against the galaxy's most dangerous species. What they found waiting for them was Gunnery Sergeant Patricia Stone and her hand-picked squad of close-quarters combat specialists. Stone was a veteran of the urban warfare campaigns on New Angeles, where human forces had learned to fight in conditions where superior technology meant nothing and victory went to the side that wanted it more. She was 45 years old, stood barely 5.5 feet tall, and weighed less than most aliens' equipment packs. She was also one of the most dangerous human beings alive in confined space combat. "Remember, people," she said calmly as 3-meter-tall alien warriors approached their concealed positions, "these big bastards are used to intimidating their opponents into submission. They've never fought anyone who hits back harder." The Vorthan warriors expected to encounter human defenders cowering behind inadequate cover, hoping desperately that their primitive weapons could somehow penetrate advanced alien armor. Instead, they ran into a meat grinder of carefully positioned explosives, overlapping fields of fire, and human soldiers who fought like cornered animals. Stone's squad had spent 3 days preparing the northern approach for exactly this scenario, turning the narrow mountain paths into killing fields where alien numbers and superior technology counted for nothing. When the first Vorthan warrior rounded the bend, he triggered a sequence of shaped charges that brought down half the mountain face, separating the alien force and channeling survivors into predetermined kill zones. "Contact front. Big ugly bastards, just like the briefing said." Stone's voice carried over the squad communication network with professional calm. "Williams, hit them with the heavy 50. Jackson, start walking mortar rounds up the slope. Everyone else, remember your fields of fire and make your shots count." The battle became a savage demonstration of human tactical flexibility. Where the Vorthans expected to use their superior reach and strength to overwhelm human defenders, they found themselves fighting an enemy that refused to engage on alien terms. The humans used every advantage the terrain provided, turning the mountain paths into a labyrinth of death where each step forward cost the aliens dearly. Theron himself found his advance stalled by a single human soldier who seemed to anticipate his every move. Stone had positioned herself at a choke point where only one Vorthan could advance at a time, and she held that position with a combination of expert marksmanship, improvised explosives, and sheer bloody-minded determination that awed even a veteran warrior like Theron. "Human," he roared in standard Galactic, his voice echoing off the mountain walls. "You fight well, but you cannot stand against an entire clan." Stone's response came in the form of a precisely aimed shot that found the gap between Theron's helmet and chest armor, the electromagnetic projectile scoring a line across his neck that drew bright blue blood. "Come in, find out, big guy." Meanwhile, Unit 7 Alpha and its Nexus Hunter team were discovering that their cybernetic enhancements were insufficient preparation for fighting humans who seemed to operate on completely different tactical principles. The cyborgs' programming was based on logical analysis of enemy capabilities and probable responses, but the humans of Station 12 consistently acted in ways that defied logical analysis. Technical Sergeant Sarah Kim, the station's chief engineer, had turned the facility's maintenance tunnels into a nightmare maze for infiltrating assassins. Using her intimate knowledge of the installation's infrastructure, she had created a defensive network that channeled intruders into carefully prepared ambush points while providing the defenders with multiple escape routes and supply caches. When the first Nexus hunters breached the facility's outer perimeter, they expected to find confused humans stumbling around in the dark, easy targets for cybernetic predators with enhanced senses and reaction times. Instead, they found themselves in a three-dimensional battlefield where human defenders appeared and disappeared like ghosts, striking from unexpected angles before vanishing into passages that shouldn't have existed. Kim herself had become the facility's primary defender against infiltration, using her engineering expertise to turn every system in the station into a potential weapon. When Nexus Hunter Unit 12 Beta attempted to access the main computer core, it found itself trapped in a maintenance shaft filled with superheated steam. When Unit 3 Gamma tried to cut through the armory blast door, the cutting tool triggered a feedback loop that overloaded its optical sensors. "This is impossible," Unit 7 Alpha transmitted to its remaining team members. "Human defensive capabilities exceed all projected parameters. Recommend tactical withdrawal and orbital bombardment." The suggestion of orbital bombardment reached Hegemony intelligence operative who was monitoring the battle from a stealth ship in high orbit, and his reaction was immediate horror. The mission was supposed to be surgical, eliminate the human outpost without leaving evidence of external intervention. Orbital bombardment would create exactly the kind of obvious alien involvement that the Hegemony was desperate to avoid. "Negative on orbital strikes," he transmitted to all mercenary commanders. "Mission parameters remain unchanged. Complete elimination of human presence required with zero evidence of off-world involvement." As the fourth hour of battle began, the three most feared mercenary organizations in known space found themselves confronting a truth that challenged everything they thought they knew about warfare. The humans of Forward Observer Station 12 were not just resisting extermination, they were winning. And they were just getting started. The fifth hour of the Battle of Forward Observer Station 12 marked a turning point that would echo through galactic military history for generations. What had begun as a routine extermination mission had devolved into a nightmare scenario where the galaxy's most elite mercenary forces found themselves not merely stalled, but systematically outfought by an enemy they had grotesquely underestimated. Staff Sergeant Rodriguez emerged from the station's fabrication bay carrying a device that looked like it had been assembled from spare parts and held together with determination. His improvised thermite detection grid had evolved during the battle into something far more sophisticated, a networked array of sensors that could track cloaked Krillian warriors with devastating accuracy. "Sergeant Major," Rodriguez called out as he connected the final sensor node to the station's defensive network, "your heat signature idea just got a major upgrade. I've rigged motion detectors to the environmental sensors, cross-referenced with thermal imaging and electromagnetic field detection. These cloaking fields might fool visual sensors, but they can't hide from physics." The results were immediate and catastrophic for the Krillian assault teams. Warriors who had spent the entire battle relying on their technological superiority suddenly found themselves exposed and vulnerable. Human defenders began targeting cloaked aliens with precision that seemed supernatural, cutting down veteran warriors who had never been detected by enemy forces in decades of combat. Commander Zethkraxis watched his tactical display in growing horror as red indicators marked fallen warriors across the battlefield. His death squads were experiencing casualty rates that exceeded their worst-case scenario projections. More disturbing, the humans seemed to be getting more effective as the battle progressed, adapting to Krillian tactics faster than his warriors could develop new approaches. "All units, implement Protocol 7, he transmitted. Concentrate maximum firepower on defensive position 1. If we can break their command center, the rest will collapse." The order represented a fundamental misunderstanding of human military doctrine. Krillian forces operated under rigid hierarchical command structures where the loss of leadership resulted in tactical paralysis. Human forces, particularly special operations units like those manning Station 12, were trained to operate as independent cells capable of continuing the mission even in complete isolation. When concentrated alien firepower began hammering the station's command center, Captain Chen made the decision that demonstrated why human military commanders were trained differently than their alien counterparts. "All units, implement Hydra Protocol," he transmitted. Command authority transfers to senior non-commissioned officers in each sector. Continue mission objectives under local command. We are now operating as autonomous hunter-killer teams. The effect was the opposite of what the aliens expected. Instead of collapsing under the loss of centralized command, the human defenders became more dangerous as they split into smaller, more flexible units. Each team began operating according to the individual expertise and initiative of their leaders, creating a defensive network that was impossible to predict or counter. Sergeant Major Vasquez found herself commanding the Western Defensive Sector with a mixed team of communications specialists and heavy weapons operators. Her decades of combat experience allowed her to see opportunities that younger soldiers might miss, and she began implementing tactics that turned the station's apparent vulnerabilities into deadly traps. "Torres, can you patch into the alien communication frequencies?" Communications specialist Torres looked up from her equipment, her expression doubtful. "The encryption is unlike anything in our database, Sergeant Major." but their transmission patterns are consistent with standard tactical networks. I might be able to jam their communications if I can identify the carrier frequencies. Do it! Even 30 seconds of communication blackout could give us the edge we need. While Torres worked on disrupting alien communications, Private Morrison in Observation Tower 3 had become something approaching legendary among the defenders. His ability to track and target cloaked enemies had evolved from lucky shots to systematic elimination of alien warriors. Morrison had discovered that human intuition, honed by millions of years of evolution as persistence hunters, could detect patterns that even advanced sensors missed. Tower 3 to all units, Morrison transmitted, his voice carrying the confidence of a soldier who had found his calling. I've identified the timing pattern on their cloaking cycles. They have to drop stealth for approximately 2 seconds every 47 seconds to avoid power overload. I'm marking optimal engagement windows on the tactical display. The information proved devastating to Krillian assault teams. Human defenders began timing their attacks to coincide with cloaking field vulnerabilities, turning advanced alien technology into a liability. Warriors who had relied on stealth for survival found themselves exposed at precisely the moments when human weapons were aimed and ready. On the northern ridge, the battle between Gunnery Sergeant Stone's close quarters team and Warchief Theron's Vorthan clans had evolved into something approaching an art form. Stone had realized that the massive alien warriors, despite their superior strength and armor, were not prepared for the type of three-dimensional combat that humans had perfected during centuries of urban warfare. Jackson, bring down that overhang on my mark, Stone called out as she tracked Theron's movement through the mountain pass. Williams, be ready to advance the moment the rocks stop falling. The controlled avalanche caught the Vorthan warriors completely off guard. Their heavy armor, designed to protect against energy weapons and projectile impacts, became a liability when tons of rock crashed down from above. Warriors who might have survived direct hits from human weapons found themselves pinned or buried under debris that their strength couldn't move. Theron himself barely escaped the rockfall, and he found himself confronting a tactical reality that challenged everything he understood about warfare. These humans fought without honor, without regard for traditional combat protocols, using every dirty trick and improvised weapon they could devise. Yet their effectiveness was undeniable, and Theron felt a growing respect for an enemy that refused to acknowledge its obvious disadvantages. Humans, he roared across the battlefield. You fight like scavengers, yet you fight well. What clan do you represent? What honor codes guide your warfare? Stone's response came in the form of another precisely timed ambush that eliminated 3 more Vorthan warriors. We represent Earth, big guy. And our honor code is simple: we don't lose. Inside the station, Technical Sergeant Kim had turned the facility's infrastructure into a weapon system that would have impressed the galaxy's most creative military engineers. She had realized that the installation's environmental controls, maintenance systems, and fabrication equipment could be repurposed into defensive assets that no alien intelligence service could have anticipated. When Nexus Hunter Unit 9 Delta attempted to infiltrate through the ventilation system, it found itself trapped in a maze of redirected airflows that channeled toxic gases from the facility's chemical storage. When Unit 4 Epsilon tried to access the power core, it triggered electromagnetic pulses that disrupted its cybernetic systems. When Unit 7 Alpha itself attempted a direct assault on the main computer core, it discovered that Kim had turned the entire facility into a massive electronic warfare platform. This is impossible, Unit 7 Alpha transmitted to its remaining operational units. Human technological capabilities exceed all intelligence estimates. Facility defenses demonstrate innovation beyond projected parameters. The cyborg assassin's confusion was understandable. What it didn't realize was that human military engineers were trained to think creatively under pressure, to see potential weapons in everyday equipment, to turn liability into advantage through pure ingenuity. Kim wasn't using advanced technology to fight the aliens, she was using human creativity, the one advantage that no alien species in the galaxy seemed to possess. As the 6th hour of battle began, the situation on the ground had become clear to objective observers. The 3 most feared mercenary organizations in known space, equipped with superior technology and overwhelming numerical advantage, were losing a battle against 200 human soldiers armed with primitive weapons and defended by outdated equipment. But the humans were not content to simply survive the alien assault. They had begun to push back. Sergeant Major Vasquez coordinated a counterattack that demonstrated why human small unit tactics were studied with awe and fear throughout the galaxy. Instead of waiting for the aliens to bring the fight to them, human defenders began advancing from their prepared positions, using the terrain knowledge and tactical flexibility that their species had perfected during millennia of warfare. "All units, implement Sherman Protocol," Vasquez transmitted. "We're going to show these alien bastards what happens when you pick a fight with humanity." The Sherman Protocol was named after a human general who had demonstrated that sometimes the best defense was a devastating offense. Human teams began advancing under covering fire, using movement and concealment techniques that confused alien sensors while bringing devastating firepower to bear on enemy positions. What the aliens had failed to understand was that humans were not just defenders of their territory, they were hunters whose species had reached the top of their planet's food chain by being more ruthless, more creative, and more determined than any other predator in existence. The mercenaries had expected to hunt prey. Instead, they had awakened predators who were about to teach the galaxy the true meaning of human warfare. The 7th hour of the Battle of Forward Observer Station 12 would become known throughout the galaxy as the moment when 3 legendary mercenary companies learned the true meaning of fear. What had begun as a routine extermination mission had transformed into a rout of such devastating completeness that it would fundamentally alter how every alien species viewed humanity's military capabilities. Commander Zeth Craxus found himself commanding a fraction of his original force, with casualty reports that defied all tactical logic. The Krillian death squads, who had built their reputation on quick, overwhelming victory, were facing the unthinkable prospect of defeat at the hands of a technologically inferior enemy. His remaining warriors were demoralized, confused, and increasingly reluctant to advance against human positions that seemed to turn every alien advantage into a liability. "Commander," transmitted his senior lieutenant, "the humans have broken through our eastern perimeter. They're advancing on our staging area." The word sent a chill through Zeth's exoskeleton. Throughout 3 centuries of mercenary operations, no enemy force had ever pushed Krillian warriors back from prepared positions. The idea that primitive human soldiers could mount a successful counteroffensive against the death squads was beyond comprehension. The truth was even more disturbing. The humans of Station 12 had not simply repelled the alien assault, they had systematically dismantled the most sophisticated military operation ever mounted against a human installation. Through a combination of tactical innovation, technological adaptation, and sheer bloody-minded determination, they had turned the aliens' own advantages against them. Sergeant Major Vasquez led the Eastern advance with a mixed team of specialists who had spent the last hour turning captured alien equipment into improvised weapons. Staff Sergeant Rodriguez had reverse-engineered enough Krillian technology to create human-compatible energy weapons, while communications specialist Torres had cracked the alien communication encryption and was now feeding false orders to confused enemy units. "Rodriguez, how are those alien toys working out?" Vasquez asked as they moved through the forest toward the Krillian staging area. "Better than expected, Sergeant Major," Rodriguez replied, shouldering a modified Krillian plasma rifle that he had somehow adapted to human physiology. "Turns out these aliens build their weapons for durability over security. Once you figure out the power coupling system, the rest is just engineering." The Krillian warriors attempting to defend their staging area found themselves facing humans equipped with their own weapons, fighting with tactics that seemed to anticipate every alien response. The psychological impact was devastating. Warriors who had spent their entire careers believing in the superiority of Krillian technology watched helplessly as primitive humans used captured equipment with greater effectiveness than its original designers had achieved. On the northern ridge, Warchief Theron Voss made a decision that would haunt him for the rest of his life. Confronted with the systematic destruction of his battle clans by a single squad of human defenders, he did something that no Vorthan warrior had done in over 400 years of military history. He ordered a retreat. "All clan leaders, implement withdrawal to secondary positions," Theron transmitted, his voice heavy with the shame of defeat. The humans fight like nothing in our experience. Honor demands that we preserve what remains of our forces." Gunnery Sergeant Stone watched the massive alien warriors pulling back from their positions and felt a satisfaction that went beyond simple tactical victory. Her small team had not just defeated the Vorthan assault, they had broken the spirit of warriors who had never known defeat. The aliens were retreating not because they lacked the strength to continue fighting, but because they had lost the will to face human defenders who refused to acknowledge the reality of their situation. Tower 3 to all units, Private Morrison transmitted from his observation post, alien forces are withdrawing across all sectors. I repeat, the aliens are running. Morrison's words carried across the battlefield like wildfire, energizing human defenders who had spent 7 hours proving that determination could overcome technological superiority. The realization that they had not just survived but actively defeated 3 of the galaxy's most feared military organizations sent a wave of fierce pride through the ranks of Station 12. Inside the facility, Technical Sergeant Kim had achieved something that would become legendary in the annals of military engineering. She had successfully captured and interrogated Unit 7 Alpha, the Nexus Hunter Command Unit, using nothing more than electromagnetic pulse weapons improvised from the station's power grid and a complete understanding of cybernetic vulnerabilities that no alien engineer had considered. Unit Designation 7 Alpha, Kim said as she stood over the partially disabled cyborg, "You're going to tell me everything about your mission parameters, your employer, and your command structure. And you're going to do it because I've just demonstrated that human engineering is more creative than alien programming." The captured Nexus Hunter's optical sensors focused on Kim with something approaching amazement. Its neural networks, designed to process and counter every known form of interrogation, had no protocols for dealing with a human engineer who had turned an entire space installation into a capture and containment system. More disturbing, Kim had somehow managed to access its memory cores without triggering the standard security protocols that should have resulted in immediate self-destruction. Query: how did human technological capabilities exceed all projected parameters? Unit 7 Alpha asked. Kim smiled, and her expression carried the confidence of a species that had solved every problem the universe had thrown at them through innovation and determination. Because you made the same mistake everyone makes when they fight humans. You assumed our technology defined our capabilities. You never considered that humans don't just use tools, we become the tools. High above the battlefield, the hegemony intelligence operative watched his carefully planned operation disintegrate into complete disaster. The 3 most expensive mercenary companies in known space had not just failed to eliminate a single human outpost, they had been systematically defeated by defenders using improvised tactics and captured alien equipment. Worse, the humans had done it all without breaking communications silence or requesting external support. If they could do this to the Krillian death squads, the Vorthan battle clans, and the Nexus Hunters, what could a fully equipped human military force accomplish? All units, immediate withdrawal, the operative transmitted. Mission parameters have been revised. But the humans of Forward Observer Station 12 were not finished delivering their lesson in terrestrial warfare. Captain Shen, who had spent the battle coordinating defensive operations while dealing with concentrated alien fire aimed at his command center, made a decision that would echo through galactic politics for generations to come. Instead of simply allowing the defeated mercenaries to withdraw, he authorized a pursuit operation that would ensure the galaxy understood exactly what had happened at Station 12. All units, implement pursuit protocol, Shen transmitted. These bastards came here to murder us. I think it's time we return the favor. The next 2 hours became a masterclass in human small unit tactics as the defenders of Station 12 hunted down the retreating alien forces with methodical precision. Using captured communications equipment, improvised weapons, and terrain knowledge that gave them decisive advantages, they systematically eliminated alien stragglers while capturing equipment and intelligence that would transform humanity's understanding of galactic military technology. By the time the last alien transport lifted off from the planet's surface, carrying the scattered remnants of 3 once mighty mercenary companies, the humans had accomplished something unprecedented in galactic military history. They had not just survived an assault by vastly superior forces, they had inflicted such devastating casualties that the attacking organizations would never recover their former strength or reputation. The final casualty count told a story that would become legend throughout human space and nightmare fuel among alien military commanders. The Krillian death squads had lost 93% of their assault force. The Vorthan battle clans had suffered 87% casualties, including the deaths of 6 clan leaders. The Nexus Hunters had lost their command unit and 17 of their most experienced operatives. The humans of Forward Observer Station 12 had lost 11 soldiers killed in action and 32 wounded. They had also captured enough alien technology and intelligence to advance human military capabilities by decades, while proving to the galaxy that Earth's children were not the easy prey that hegemony strategists had assumed. Sergeant Major Vasquez stood in the ruins of the station's outer perimeter as the last alien ship disappeared into the night sky, her expression carrying the satisfaction of a predator that had successfully defended its territory against intruders. Around her, the defenders of Station 12 began the process of cataloging captured equipment and treating wounded comrades, their faces bearing the quiet confidence of soldiers who had faced the impossible and emerged victorious. "Think they'll be back?" Torres asked as she monitored alien communication channels for signs of renewed assault. Vasquez looked up at the stars where humanity's enemies were retreating in defeat and shame, and her smile carried the certainty of a species that had never met a challenge it couldn't overcome. "Let them come," she said quietly. "Now they know what happens when you pick a fight with humans. Next time, we'll be ready for them. And, next time, we won't let any of them leave." The Battle of Forward Observer Station 12 was over. The lesson it taught would resonate through the galaxy for centuries to come. Humanity had earned its place among the stars not through superior technology or overwhelming numbers, but through the simple, terrifying truth that humans did not know how to quit. The aliens had learned to fear a species that turned every disadvantage into an advantage, every defeat into a lesson, and every threat into an opportunity to prove that Earth's children were the most dangerous warriors the galaxy had ever seen. And, in the quiet aftermath of victory, as the defenders of Station 12 tended their wounded and counted their captured prizes, the galaxy began to understand that humanity's greatest weapon was not any technology or tactic, but the simple, unshakable belief that surrender was not an option.